So you've got an idea for a research. Great. The first thing that you have to do now is write an abstract. And you write your abstract for several reasons. The first reason is, if you don't do that, you will forget the idea. So the abstract is the most convenient way to organize your idea in a way that is memorable, in a way that will be left for you, conserved in your computer. But there's a more important reason. The abstract allows you to see if you really have an idea, because it's a way to focus your mind around the topic and see whether what you have is just a topic, so just a set of a field of potential ideas, or is it a real idea for your research? A real idea for a research has to include an hypothesis. An hypothesis is a scary word. I know that lawyers don't like to use it. It's mostly used by scientists, but it applies across all fields of sciences and humanities. An hypothesis means some claim that you have about the world, which you think is true, and you set out to test it. In this short video, I'm going to teach how to write an abstract in a way that focuses you on this hypothesis, in a way that will help you keep your ideas clear and precise and get ready for later stages of writing your research. My name is Shai Dotan. I'm Associate Professor of International Public Law at the University of Copenhagen Faculty of Law, and this series of lectures is designed to help you improve your English and your research skills. You sit down to write your abstract. Here's a quick tip. Before you write the abstract, write a great title. Now, a title is supposed to be informative, nothing that is designed to be catchy without actually dealing with the topic that you're dealing with. If you want to, on the one hand, have some kind of a catchy slogan, but on the other hand, guide the reader with some informative title, you can have the technique of using the colon, so have 2 or 3 words, more of an introductory presentation of the idea, and then after the colon, you add some more information and you make the title deeper. But it's important that the title will not be just something that looks catchy or showy. It also needs to deal with the topic itself. And this is something that is going to help you write a good abstract. And if you can't decide on a title, then write a few down. Write them down, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Try it out in different variations and settle out on a title. Write it down. Now you're ready to write an abstract. Now an abstract, when done, will be 1 paragraph of approximately 150 words to 300 words. That's the whole thing. It's a very easy document to write. But there's a certain method that you need to write it in, and that's very important. Now, this method, I learned it from my mentor, Patrick Berry, but variations of this you will find by many teachers. They all have the same conclusion. In order to write a good abstract, you need to write something that is focused, like a funnel. You start from something broad and you go to something focused. And that's very important, because the biggest mistake that I see the students make when they don't use this technique is they write one sentence that is very broad, another sentence that is a specific argument, and then again broad and again specific. They go all over the place. And that's exactly what we want to avoid. We want to focus you. We want to have a funnel that is very accurate. Imagine that you're pouring water into a bottle, and you need to get all the water into the bottle. In the easiest way is to have a funnel with a very large, wide rim and a very narrow point that goes all the way to the bottom. So, how do you structure an abstract like a funnel? You have to divide it to 3 parts. The first part is your topic. Your second part is your angle on this topic. And the third part is your argument. Each of these write in a separate paragraph in the same Word file, or on paper if you prefer to write it with a pen. When you write the topic paragraph, you start with something very broad. So it can be a phenomenon that you're describing, a quote that you're describing. One technique that I use many times is I use some kind of a statement that is a very broad statement, like scholars have argued so and so. When you write a very broad statement, you're not risking anything. You're not saying all scholars claim that, or that's the only claim in literature. You're saying there is a claim, and that's enough to draw the attention of the reader towards what it is that you want to focus on. This is your topic. You start with something very, very broad, and you write 2-3 sentences about it. Then you want to add your own angle. So is there a case study that you studied, for example, where you focus on one particular judgment or a set of judgment or a particular court in a particular situation? This doesn't apply only to law. You can say it about anything else. I just want the second paragraph to be similar in style, but more specific. I want it to deal with something that is your specific contribution to the literature. That's your angle. You're still not making any argument. You're still describing, but you're describing something that is very much linked to your research and not to a whole field of research that goes around the topic. The last paragraph of your abstract, the third paragraph, is a paragraph that presents your argument. And when somebody reads the paragraph, I want them to understand very clearly 3 things. I want them to understand what is your research question. I want them to understand what is your methodology for examining it. And I want them to understand what is your hypothesis, what is your argument. So when you write the last paragraph, the reader needs to know what it is that you want to argue and how do you plan to support this argument. Now, a lot of students are very afraid from this idea of a hypothesis because they think that they cannot prove anything unless they are real scientists in the hard sciences. If you're in the social sciences, in law, in the humanities, you can't prove an hypothesis. But of course you can. That's exactly the point of research of any kind. You can make an hypothesis about feminist literature in the 70s. So it's you make a claim about it. You will determine it by reading books and analyzing them in a certain way. This may not be quantitative tools that you will use. You may not reach a very high level of accuracy in your methods, but you're still claiming something. If you're not claiming something, you don't have a research. Now, the method, the 4-number method that goes, which is called the 4-number because just like a phone number has a country code, an area code, and then a particular phone that goes to a particular person, you want your abstract to look the same. You want it to start from something broad, just like the country code, then with the topic, then it goes to the little more focus. This is the angle, just like an area code, and then you want it to go exactly to a particular phone, and that's exactly where you write your hypothesis. Okay? Now, the method is incredibly powerful, and you need to try it several times to see how well it works. Because once you know that the beginning of the paragraphs are not committing you to any argument, it's easier to commit to an argument later when you write your argument later on. Now, I said in the last part, when you write the argument part, I said anybody needs to be able to read and understand your research question, your methodology, and hypothesis. Here, I don't say separate into 7 paragraphs. Don't do that. It's 1 paragraph, but these questions, what is your research question? What is your methodology? What is your argument or hypothesis? They should be easily answered by this paragraph. Because anybody that reads them should understand what is your hypothesis. Now, there's a trick here. Hypothesis is very easily transformed between a statement and a question. Okay? You can say the European Court of Human Rights has grown in influence in recent years. That's a statement. That's an hypothesis. You can say, is it true that the European Court of Human Rights has grown in influence in recent years? That's a question. You see, if a question has a clear answer, then it's a proper question for a research. It's a research question that is basically the other side of a coin of an hypothesis. So, in order to get to the point when you can write an hypothesis that clearly, you need to follow the 4-number method. You need to start with a topic, angle, and then final paragraph, get your hypothesis. Write them up in separate paragraphs, really in separate paragraphs on the page, Then if you're working on the computer, just collapse the paragraphs to one paragraph. Usually, in my experience, they don't need any editing because the paragraphs fit together seamlessly. So you don't need to change any words. But if you need to change a few words, do that. And then you have one paragraph, 150 to 300 words. That is your abstract. You are ready to go. If you are stuck with writing an abstract, it's okay to make a draft and try another version. I sometimes write several versions of abstracts, and that's a very, very good idea. It's actually a great idea to sharpen your analysis, to make sure that you get the hypothesis right. So never shy away from putting an abstract aside, keeping it as a draft, and writing another draft. That's a very good practice. The same goes with the title. You may still be undecided about the titles, so you can try several versions until you're ready to commit. That process sometimes will take years, because I've had papers where until they were published, I sifted the title many times, changed the abstracts many times. So that's perfectly possible, and it's a great way to practice to produce many drafts. Every draft makes you a little bit better. Once you have the abstract ready, I want you to write a skeleton as well. I will speak about this in a different video, but I just want to give you the basic idea. So the skeleton is a way for you to guess what is your table of contents for your analysis. So imagine how the table of contents would look like for the entire project when it's done. You write the chapters and the sub-chapters, and sometimes even the sub-chapters, and write titles, informative titles all the way through. This helps you to see the structure of your research. So if the abstract is a way for you to focus to a very narrow point, which is your hypothesis, the skeleton is exactly the opposite. It's taking this topic and breaking it out to what you need to do, in which order, and trying to organize the structure of your research. And that's a very important practice, because you need to be moving around these titles and subtitles of chapters to make sure what is the order you want to follow. But on this we speak some other time. I just tell you, be aware of that once you write a skeleton, an abstract, the next task is to write a skeleton. For all my students, it doesn't matter if they come from me to write a PhD, an MA thesis, a BA thesis, an internship report. I always say I only start once you have an abstract and a skeleton. That's the first thing, and I need to approve both documents before we proceed. So you have the abstract. What do you do then? Talk to as many people as you can about your abstract. The nice thing about the abstract is it focuses your mind to create something like a mini elevator pitch. It's called an elevator pitch because you imagine that you are going with a dean in the elevator. You have just 1 minute. How do you describe your research? So abstract is a great tool to do that. It helps you to focus. It helps you to be sharp. It sounds like a conversation because you're starting out from a broad topic and you narrow to your argument. So I want you to take this as an exercise. Talk to people, even random people on the bus, about your research. This is a great exercise, especially people that are out of your field. It will force you to explain things clearly in an unjargonized way, in a way that is clear to everybody, and that's a great scientific practice. So talk about your abstract as much as you can with others. Send your abstract to a supervisor. Most supervisors will not read chapters until the end of your work, depending on about your university or degree, but abstracts they will read, and they will read carefully, and they will comment on them. So that's a great way to do that. Share it with your friends also. Once you have an abstract, this is something that you can use in numerous stations in your academic career. Many times when you write a paper, you need to submit an abstract. It will even appear separately on the submission system. So this is something that the editors will read first. You write a good abstract, you get a good publication offer. You write a good abstract, you get a good offer for a conference, because many conferences are selective. And in these conferences, many times selection is done based on abstracts, or at least to some extent based on abstracts. You can write grant proposals with abstracts. So that's a very important skill, and I want you to use it. I want to stress that even if you're beginning your career, use this skill to write abstracts to move ahead and improve and get better. And this will get better significantly over time as you get more experience and you go to master this technique. But remember, the technique itself is very, very simple. The main thing that you want to think about is a funnel or a pyramid, something that has a very, very narrow tip, going from the topic to the angle to the argument. And when you write the argument, make sure you have an hypothesis. And how do you know you have an hypothesis? If you can make a question that has a clear answer. Okay, research question with a clear answer, and then some way for you to answer this question. That is your methodology. Master this, and you are getting ready to write an excellent research paper.